So now on Esoteric Cliffnotes, we have The Magic of Believing by Claude M. Bristol. And this book is a little bit older, copywritten 1948. So, all right. So chapter 1 is How I Came to Tap the Power of Belief. And so he talks about his time as a journalist and just checking out some weird stuff with gypsies and like seances with Ouija boards and stuff. And once again, I'm just going to read through the highlighted portions. So he says, believe that you have it, and you have it. What the fool cannot learn, he laughs at, thinking that by his laughter he shows superiority instead of latent idiocy. So, speaking of folks that laugh about kind of this woo-woo stuff. And then, when you have that knowing inside of you, fear has vanished, and the obstruction of a continued life of all good removed. So it's more about believing, it's also about knowing. He mentions a couple books here, so a couple breadcrumbs. So first is another book that he wrote called TNT, It Rocks the Earth. And let's say this is the book that he wrote before this one, obviously before this one, but he seemed to have gotten a lot of positive response there, which is why he wrote this one as well, The Magic of Believing. And then Morris Buck's Cosmic Consciousness. That one might ring a bell to some people. Okay, chapter 2, Mind Stuff Experiments. So I just have to say, just because I was already familiar with a lot of the concepts in here, I didn't really start highlighting much until towards the end. He says, it is vital that you know exactly what you want out of life. You must know where you are headed, and you must keep a fixed goal in view. That, of course, is the overall picture. You must have a fixed idea before you'll obtain what you are after. And then he says, I'm aware that metaphysicians claim that thoughts are things. They may be in a general sense, but so far as the effect upon us individually is concerned, they do not become real to us until we give them life with our own thinking or through the workings of our imaginations. So as in we have to think that ourselves. And then he mentions folks moving things with their minds, and this little contraption called a dialect. It's a small disc of cardboard, and this dialect bearing the facsimile of the face of a clock with numbers from 1 to 12 is used, he says. And this is better known as a Rosicrucian dialect and is used by a Mork Rosicrucian Brotherhood. So I'm just expanding on how far the power of the mind can go with telekinesis. Chapter 3, What the Subconscious Is. Another breadcrumb from the unconscious to the conscious by Gustav Geley. And then he says, it is operative in the psychic world in which the psychic powers of the subconscious are manifested in such phenomena as telepathy, clairvoyance, and psychokinesis. But also it can be summoned to help the conscious mind in time of great personal necessity, when the conscious calls upon the subconscious to use its powers and resources to solve a vital problem or to bring to pass that which is sought or desired by the individual. The subconscious mind will not take the trouble to work for those who do not believe in it. It must be in the spirit that the work has already been done. Feel and think yourself successful. It is important for you to go one step further and actually see yourself as already successful, either in the performance of some selected task or as actually occupying the position to which you are aspiring. You must receive the message from the subconscious freely, and after understanding it, you must act on it at once. And moving on to chapter 4, suggestion is power. The law of suggestion, through which all forces operating within its limits are capable of producing phenomenal results. That is the power of suggestion and autosuggestion, your own to yourself, or heterosuggestion coming to you from outside sources that starts the machinery into operation or causes the subconscious mind to begin its creative work. And right here is where the affirmations and repetitions play their part. It is the repetition of the same chant, the same incantations, the same affirmations that lead to belief. And once that belief becomes a deep conviction, things begin to happen. The subtle force of the repeated suggestion overcomes our reason, acting directly on our emotions and our feelings, and finally penetrating to the very depths of our subconscious minds. Success or failure in business is caused more by mental attitudes, even than by mental capacities. Yep, all about that growth mindset. And then he continues to say, he mentions Alexander the Great and Napoleon, and he says they became supermen because they had supernormal beliefs. All right, now on to chapter 5, the art of mental pictures. So visualization. There are many women who have improved their appearance by continuing to feel the delights of beauty, by thinking thoughts of the beautiful, by wearing stylish clothes, by adding things of beauty to their surroundings, by developing poise and easy carriage, and by constantly telling themselves that they are going to win out. You can do the same thing, and you will speed up the process if you will continue to hold the mental picture of your new self and never relax for a second. So even though we're talking, just a note from the reader, even though we're talking about physical appearance and beauty, we're still talking about affecting something in the physical. So, it's the doing the thing you have pictured to yourself that brings it into actual existence. So he talks about seeing yourself and using your imagination and doing the thing. In this connection, think about the use of a magnifying glass. When properly focused, it will gather the light from the sun and concentrate it so that the heat will burn a hole in the object upon which the rays are focused. It must be held steady before the heat power is developed. So it is with the holding of the image or the mental picture. Let's be reminded that whenever we fix our thoughts upon or steadily focus our imaginations upon, that is what we attract. And then he mentioned somebody who put this motto or slogan in his office, and who set up his office in the manner of Napoleon. And so he says, he has a motto or slogan to meet his gaze every time he looks upon the room. He sees and feels the eyes of Napoleon upon him when he sits at his desk, or he feels a touch of the spiritual as he gazes at the little shrine. In other words, they are a form of mechanisms that the executive uses to excite his imagination, a picture to inspire him, or a series of suggesting forces that reach his subconscious mind. So then he starts thinking and acting like Napoleon. Cultivate it, attend it, give it sunshine and water, and it grows into full life. Remember, it always produces after its kind, be it single or hybrid. So with you and the suggestions you impart to your subconscious mind, the result will be pure or complex depending upon the original seed and the intention which you give it. In other words, plant the right kind of seed, thought of a pure strain, and habitually feed it with strong affirmation, thought always directed towards the same end, and it will grow into a mighty force, finding ways and means of overcoming all obstacles. It will reach forth with its roots to find more food on which to grow and expand its foliage to gather more sunshine. And then he mentions this exercise that he did at a company or for a company with these employees. And he says, there was considerable surprise when I told them to write down what they wanted most in life, what they most wanted in life. I explained that if they would do this, I would point out the way to obtain it. And then he mentioned somebody who pretty much gave away what his intentions were, and they doubted him, and then it took away from his imaginative powers. And from that, the guy said, it taught me a lesson never to tell anyone of my plans or desires. The truth is that when you talk about what you're going to do, you scatter your forces. You lose the close connection with the subconscious, and you frequently find that unless you do as here directed, you will have to start all over again in your program of achievement. And he mentions it's a bit like a prayer, or like a, no, not like a prayer, like a wish that you make when you blow out candles or pull on a wishbone. But if the effects are to be permanent, the affirmations must be continued until the desired results are obtained. You have already visualized it if you have accepted this science, but the repetition will be the means of driving the suggestion deeply and firmly into the subconscious mind. This may be compared to driving a nail into a board. The first tap puts the nail in place, but it is only a number of heavy strokes that the nail is driven home. I love that analogy. Faith without action is dead. So take that what you will. Chapter 6, the mirror technique for releasing the subconscious. And so he mentions people who want money. They thought wealth and their coming to possess it was quite similar to my own experience related in this earlier book. If you contemplate having your own business, think about this and use the science of belief, for you'll find someone with money who will help you. Always look on the bright side, never on the dark side of things. Many great orators, preachers, actors, and statesmen have used the smear technique for years. Winston Churchill, according to Drew Pearson, never made a speech of importance unless he made it before a mirror first. Pearson also declared that Woodrow Wilson employed the same technique. It's what I call a supercharging method for stepping up the subconscious forces of the speaker, so that when he appears before an audience, those forces flow out to and affect his listeners. By using the mirror and rehearsing the speech as you are going to deliver it, you are creating at that moment a picture of yourself, your words, the sound of your voice, and your sight of the audience to which the immediate future is to bring reality. He mentions that to use that for everything, not just speeches. Write the slogans directly on the face of the mirror. Make a regular ritual of it. Practice doing it at least twice a day, mornings and evenings, and you will be surprised at the results. You can augment this by writing with soap on the face of the mirror any slogans or keywords you wish, so long as they are key to what you have previously visualized and want to see in reality. As you stand before the mirror, keep telling yourself that you are going to be an outstanding success and that nothing in this world is going to stop you. You will find that once you start this mirror practice, your eyes will take on a power that you never realized you could develop. Something that writers have referred to as a dynamic or fascinating power. This power will give you that penetrating gaze that causes others to think you are looking into their very souls. Sooner or later, there will come an intensity that will bespeak the intensity of your thought, which people will begin to recognize. So develop eyes that bespeak confidence. The mirror will help you. The true kind of hunch is always concerned with something that is related to you directly or indirectly, and it gives you the idea to do a certain thing, followed by the momentum to carry out the necessary action. Chapter 7. How to protect your thoughts. Success is a matter of never ceasing application. Building a reputation for reliability, which will be of great value as you proceed up the ladder. Remember this, some of our enemies may be our own making. Those friends or enemies are merely a reflection of our own thoughts. The other fellow will consider us an enemy or friend according entirely to the picture which we ourselves conjure up. A person who desires riches must go where riches are. Therefore, if you want money, you've got to associate yourself with people who have it or who know how to have it. This may sound rather gross, but the truth is that if it is money you are after, you must go where it is and where it is being spent. And also you must become personally acquainted with those who have the authority to spend it. If you are well dressed and have an air of prosperity and importance, workmen may be in your path, who may be in your path will step aside as you pass. Obviously, it has something to do with appearance, but further than that, it does something to me inside. It makes me feel like a new man who could lick his weight in wild cats. He mentions this about taking a shower and dressing well before like sales meetings. And continuing on the same thought, not only did the crowd give way, but others came forward and made a path for him. When I go into a place of danger, I always throw a white circle about myself and nothing can come through that circle. And that's a philosophical or mental white circle. We seldom realize how much our emotional vibrations affect others and how much we are affected by theirs. So he might mention auras in here, at least loosely. Decide and act, and the chances are that your troubles will fade into thin air. Cures are affected by denying that the disease exists. Many cases of hay fever, bronchial asthma, heart disease, high blood pressure, rheumatic disease, arthritis, diabetes, and the common cold, and various skin conditions such as warts, hives, and allergic reactions were caused either by emotional upsets directly or by physical disturbances in which the emotions were an aggravating factor. The treatment consists of locating the source of the emotional disturbances and endeavoring to eradicate it. Any person who possesses an understanding of the use of the power of suggestion could get the same results without the aid of a healer, provided he were sufficiently strong and constant in his own convictions and suggestions. The same technique, the cards, the mirror, with suitable affirmations can be used to great advantage. The mind does indeed possess properties not belonging to physics as we know it. It is to be noted that practically all of the great electrical scientists, including Edison, Steinmetz, Tesla, and Marconi, were greatly interested in telepathy. Chapter 8: Woman and the Science of Belief. The female of the species is more deadly than the male. Women, by their very nature of thinking, make circumstances serve them. American women, although they may not be aware of it, are potentially in a position to have things pretty much their own way, for they actually control the wealth of this country. Call it a power, God, or anything you wish, which is always there to sustain us in time of need. I have never seen it fail. And then he mentions Empress Eugenie, who married Napoleon III. When a small child, she had fallen against a banister and bruised her body. Her gypsy nurse told her not to cry, that she would be a queen and live to be 100. She believed in gypsies, and her fortune materialized nearly as prophesied. She became Empress Eugenie and lived until she was 94, just 6 years less than the age fixed by her gypsy nurse. Then he mentions how Madame Curie had similar childhood prophecies. And then another case of Opal Whitley. It was uncanny, almost supernatural, the manner in which circumstances suited themselves to her plans. Clearly from using these methods. For years, I've carried the conviction that people close to nature and those intimately associated with both wild and domesticated animals have an understanding or an insight that enables them to see far beyond the horizons of most ordinary folks who live in the cities. It was the power of suggestion working in the individual to make the prophecy a reality that finally produced the outcome. I believe that is what happened in the cases that I have cited. The extension of such help did bring its own reward in terms of like helping others, even though it might have meant only personal satisfaction in knowing that a helping hand had been extended. If you tell yourself over and over again that there's no limit to the creative power within you, that's about all there is to it. When you're about to drop off to sleep, just tell yourself that tomorrow is the day you've got to surpass anything you did today. There are many women who have remained single simply because they feel deeply about marriage and are not willing to marry just any man. But surely, if this science of creative thinking can work for men, it can work also for women, even to the point of women's actually creating an image of the man of her desires and literally bringing him into reality. Now, the women of modern times have a unique advantage, twofold mental advantage. To their subconscious mind, the skilled use of which is characteristic of their sex, and which has been highly developed and been their unconscious, though intuitive guide through the ages. There has been added their conscious mind, which has been specially developed by the scientific method of modern education. The only thing you need is the power of believing, sincerely, strongly, and completely. Once the subconscious has received your message and understands your desires and ambitions, it will only be a short time when your desire will be fulfilled and your ambition received or achieved. Chapter 9. Belief makes things happen. Ideas fly with a sureness with which the female moth communicated her whereabouts to the male, across incredible barriers to the one mind for which they were originally intended. All a person has to do is to believe, earnestly and sincerely, that such a power of mind exists, and then conscientiously apply the science. It's all just as you say. When one starts tapping the subconscious mind, your own or others, the bricks fall into place as though by magic. Anyone with an open mind and willing to read and experiment for himself will sooner or later come to the conclusion that the phenomena of psychokinesis and telepathy are realities, and, as investigators have pointed out, that these powers are latent in everyone, though developed to varying degrees. The luck factor came about from a determined mind, a combination of visualization, concentrated thought, willing, and believing. Think about this in connection with yourself and the goals you have set for yourself, for in it is the primary secret of its science. Step out in front, head towards the sun. Keep facing it and the dark shadows will not cross your path. Whatever man can conceive mentally, he can bring into materialization. Health, wealth, and happiness must follow if the proper mental pictures are created and constantly maintained, for the law of cause and effect is immutable. Back your belief with a resolute will, and you become unconquerable, a master of men among men, yourself. So just a final thought from the reader. This seems to be one of the books that kind of started it all for a lot of people. Um, I feel like there's a lot of similar concepts that are um, shared by really anybody that's in this kind of metaphysics space or talks about the subconscious mind. So definitely Marissa Peer and Joe Dispenza. Um, yeah, definitely those two. So I feel like a lot of this is definitely not the first place this came up, but I feel like this is definitely further upstream than most of the people that we see talking about this subject today. So cool stuff.